One of the most influential books for my development as a golf instructor was a relatively obscure book by a notable British instructor called Ken Adwick, called The X-Ray Way to Master Golf. And he did something quite unusual. He put lights on the head of the club and on the hands, little battery pack, opened up the shutter on a camera at night, and was able to capture the swings of great champions and demonstrate the arc of the swing, the path that it took. And he was able to demonstrate, and it was a major thrust of the conclusions in the book, that the arc of the backswing went more around the body and that the downswing was actually outside of that arc, just not outside of the target line. Now, it also was beautifully illustrated by these photos that the action of any of the champions were these beautiful sweeping arcs. And one of the things I've noticed over the years teaching is that I can very often tell within the first couple of inches of the backswing how well somebody is likely to be able to hit the ball. How are those things connected? It's simply this. As we start back, if we do it in a way that allows a forward movement of the shoulder, I've been talking about downward, but obviously we're three-dimensional, then essentially you're going to be drawing a pie crust. It's a three-dimensional amoeba, and it's another source of inconsistency, and clearly the champions don't do that. So I always encourage people to start the swing with a replica of the waggle, and the waggle, having stood correctly, is accomplished by just rocking the shoulders in such a way that the club moves from here to here. Now, some champions think that or authors think that it's just the hands and arms, but at some point the shoulder is going to be involved, and if it starts to move forward, independent of the rest of your body, then there's a bulge in the swing. So I call this battle the bulge. I don't want to see the club move out here as if you're trying to avoid a brick on the ground in the first 6 inches of the backswing, but I quite often see that. By contrast, I very rarely see the opposite be a problem. And so use the waggle as your indicator, but I would suggest that we have a little bit of flexibility here, because one of my favorite expressions with my clients is adapt or adopt. If I find an error and they're generally doing well, I can say, well, you can either adapt that and improve it, or you can adopt it by starting with that shape at the beginning. Well, they all choose to say, I'll adapt. But quite quickly, with a lot of them, it becomes evident that it's a lot more efficient just to put a little bit of a forward movement into the shoulder at address, along with the raising of the side of the chest, so that there's very little likelihood that that shoulder will add a bulge and therefore a pie crust to an otherwise beautifully arced swing.